Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary.
Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day and start to see what are the patterns in your relationship that are building your relationship and what are the actions and things that are happening that are breaking your relationship. It's usually a pattern that constantly happens. Recognize the pattern, feel those emotions, the underlying emotions, and solve those problems. Now I have a question for you. Have you checked out the podcast on YouTube? Yeah, and see my facial expressions. Apparently, that's the best part of watching it on YouTube because I'm really expressive with my face. Yeah, everything is just written all over. So people are going crazy from it. If you hadn't checked it out yet, go right now to YouTube and subscribe so you don't miss a single upcoming episode. Now, for today's episode, I'm super excited. We've got another couple, but not just any couple, married circus performers who won first runner-up in America's Got Talent Champions in 2020, Duo Transcend. Thank you so much, Tyce and Mary Nielsen, for being here. I'm super excited. Guys, you'll want to go follow them on Instagram or TikTok at Duo Transcend. They do crazy things. You'll literally be there addicted just watching and seeing what they are doing. Now, Mary and Tyce, you want to start by telling us how you guys met?
How we met. So I'm from West Virginia and I moved out to Utah to go to school. Like most college students, I was broke. So I was trying to find a job and I saw a show in Utah that was hiring cliff divers. And I wasn't a diver, but I thought it sounded cool. So I showed up and just like tried to pretend I was a cliff diver. And they hired me basically because I was a girl that would at least try to jump off the cliff. So I got hired there. And then they had a coach that trained me to actually like do tricks and stuff. And Tyce was on his LDS mission, like his church mission. And he had been there right before I got there. So we just barely missed each other. So he was working there, then he left, and then I got hired. But I was still there when he got home 2 years later. So that's how we met, was at that show.
So cool. So your career literally started in like your relationship, everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, from that point, how did you like you met, but where did like your relationship take you? Was it through your job? Was it through just like being friends?
Yeah, we were friends first for a while. We actually would go on double dates, but not with each other. Like, we both had our own dates and then we'd go. And then it got awkward because we realized we were attracted to each other. So, but, it kind of, I think us being friends first kind of helped us, because we didn't just hang out because we were dating. We hung out because we were actually just friends.
Yeah, for sure. I think that every relationship needs that friendship first to be a real solid relationship and not just like some infatuation going on, Yeah. So at what point did you like in your relationship decide that you are going to go start working together?
Yeah, when we were working at the restaurant, it was actually kind of funny because we were just doing diving. Imagine the Rainforest Cafe, if you've ever been to a Rainforest Cafe, the one like at Disney or whatever. So imagine that, but with cliffs inside of it, and then like a big rock wall, and then a pool at the bottom of it. So this place was called the Mayan. It's here in Salt Lake City, Utah. We were performing there, and then Mary actually got put in charge of the entertainment over the whole place. And so she'd always been super fascinated by Cirque du Soleil and like the girls that climb up the ribbons and do the tricks on the silks and things like that. So she went and talked to the boss guy and was like, hey, we do dive shows every half hour. What if in between the half hour, so every 15 minutes, we did some type of like cool aerial show? And he's like, oh, I love that idea. So we went and bought like all the aerial equipment, like the silks and the trapeze and a lyra and an aerial pole. We went and bought all this stuff. And then after hours, so the restaurant would shut down. And about 11 o'clock at night, we would go back in and train over the water. So we'd hook up all of our stuff over the water, and we'd train our trapeze, we'd train the silks, we'd do all this stuff over the water. And so eventually we got pretty good at it. And then we started to incorporate us doing aerial stuff between the dive shows. So me and Mary put together like a duo trapeze routine, and we would do that in between the shows. And so that's kind of where it all started picking up, was there.
Wow. You started like with your practice at 11 o'clock at night. You've had your whole day and it's just starting.
Yep, that's literally what we would do. We do it almost every night.
Shows your devotion to what you do and continue. Do you now have like balanced out your practice? Like, how do you make sure balance between living life and practicing on a daily basis?
Mainly it's like we enjoy practicing, and so we have access to a gym here where we live, and we're able to just go in almost every other day. Usually, sometimes every day we go in, but at least every other day we go in. And
especially right now, because the show that we were doing in Vegas, it's still shut down because of COVID. So normally we would be working full time, and when we work full time, we actually only practice a little bit because we go in to the theater and warm up, and then we do the show. So we don't work on a whole lot of new skills while we're working, because if, we happen to get hurt, then we have to miss work, and then, that's messes up the show. But like right now with COVID, we're like, yeah, I guess I'll just go practice every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we end up doing a lot of practicing, and, that's just it. The way we balance it is we've got our little 5-year-old, he's little Jax, and he just loves being in the gym. And so when we go train, it ends up kind of being like family time. So he's jumping on the trampoline, and we're practicing our skating and our trapeze and other things that we do. So it ends up just kind of being like this whole, every day, every other day, or whenever we go in around, in the afternoon sometime, we just kind of go spend 2 or 3 hours at the gym doing our thing. So it's to balance it. We love doing it. So it's kind of easy to integrate it into our lives. And obviously it's necessary for us to keep up with our job. So, it's just kind of, it's almost like if somebody were to go in to do their like 9-to-5 job, their normal job, like we go into the gym to do our training. Like it's kind of the same concept.
Working together has for sure had a major effect on your own relationship. What was that?
You know what? It's luckily for us, like we're really even tempered, the both of us. And so we work in a lot of shows with a lot of other couples that work together. And a lot of times it ends up kind of being a little bit of a disaster, because with a lot of personalities, like when you're a couple, a lot of times you just don't work that well together. Like obviously you love each other and the relationship's good, but then when you add on top of that working together, it just doesn't
pressure up. Yeah.
Well, with us, it's been okay, because we're just, again, we're kind of we have this like even temper. We don't get too overly stressed out about stuff, and we also don't get too down into a rut. And so it hasn't really like affected our relationship in a negative way too much, other than just like typical things, like we spend 24/7 together. We're never really separated. And so that in itself can create a little bit of like,
yeah. Do you ever feel like you need space and you're just like, okay, get out of here?
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
now. Like,
yeah. I mean, obviously, like we have those times where it's like, okay, you can tell that we've just been together like a little too long. So like we need to have like, she'll have like girls' night out sometimes and go hang out with the girlfriends. And that's just kind of like normal stuff. But for us, we've just learned to balance our like love life with the professional side of things. And it's worked for us. And luckily for us, Jax, our son, is just so excited about traveling and going to the gym and working out with us. And so it just kind of, it works out well.
Yeah, well, I think you with your passion and the way you come to it, like he can't not love it.
Right. Yeah, we definitely do. It's been good to us. We've been able to travel the world. We've been on cool shows, TV shows, and so it's really been a cool thing for us.
And is he in school yet? Like, has it affected his school life or?
He's in preschool now. So normally he would like go to preschool and then maybe miss a month while we're gone touring because he comes with us when we do the shows. So we were in Florida this the past holidays with Cirque du Soleil, and he just went with us. And then when we came home, he just went back in school. So the teachers where he goes, they're super understanding about our work. So they're just like, yeah, when he's here, he can come, but if you leave, it's fine. But I think it might be more complicated when he starts
like real school.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out, I guess, when it comes along.
Yeah. Did you have like any people who basically speak against you and like say like what you're doing is not a real job, you shouldn't be doing it, you're ruining your kids' life, your own lives, and things like that?
I think, especially at the beginning, before we really started working a lot, people were like, what are you doing with your lives? But as they saw us, get hired by these companies, like Cirque du Soleil and all these other companies that we work for. And my mom wouldn't even be offended by me saying this. Like, she's told me out of all of her kids, I'm the most independent that she has. It's no offense to my other siblings, but because we worked really, really, really hard, we've been able to save money. So, we don't have any debt besides our mortgage, but, we have like our cars paid off, all the credit cards paid off because I also realize that what we do, it can't last forever. Like one day our bodies are going to give out. So I try and be really responsible with our money because, I have friends who do similar things to like what we do, and they go and they make good money, but then they go out to the club and spend, $1,000 and then they save no money. So I'm like, what are you going to do when you're too old to perform? So right now, we just save as much money as we can. And, we've never had to help or ask any of our family members for help financially. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that. I think families should help each other out. But I think because we've never come to any of them asking for help, they're like, oh, I guess it is a real job.
Yeah. And I come from a family that's a little bit like, I'm like half and half. So like my dad is a magician and he's been a magician for like 35 years.
Okay.
And so, but then my mom comes from very like traditional, like you better have a job or like you're a bum.
So how was she able to marry your dad?
I don't know, because they're so opposite. Like my parents are so opposite. And so my dad actually kind of got a lot of crap for being a magician because like no one took him serious, right? And so, but they've done well too. And so with me, like my mom was concerned. She wasn't ever like super anti being a performer. She was just concerned because she knows that like most performers were a little bit of like the black sheep, right? Like we're the misfits, especially like when it comes to the circus type stuff. Like we're totally the misfits. And so she was just concerned that I was just going to run away with the circus and then just become this misfit and never really have any responsibility, never have like a real job. And so she was concerned, but once she noticed us like getting these really good shows, like the first time she really appreciated what we do was when we first got like one of our big contracts at SeaWorld San Diego. We were contracted in the show, and even like the whole rehearsal process, like she hadn't seen any of it, and she still was kind of like giving me crap for it. And then when they came out to see the show, she was finally like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is actually amazing. And it's really cool what you guys do. And I promise I'll never like get on your case again because I actually realize that you're doing like cool stuff. So it was a little bit weird in the beginning, but then people saw that it was becoming a real thing for us. So they kind of were like, okay, this is awesome.
Yeah, I can't believe she actually apologized. Like she admitted that like some people like would say, okay, whatever, never mind. Like they won't say anything, but it's impressive. Did you think that you would be have such a career? Like as a kid?
No, we never, like, even when we first started doing this stuff, like we had no idea that there were people that made an actual living that could like support a family off of like the type of stuff that we were doing. And so our first like introduction to this was we had a friend that was a diver in a Cirque du Soleil show. Like we just through understanding like what he was doing and some of the people that he was working with and how much they get paid, we were like, wait, what? You get paid that much money to be like a Cirque du Soleil performer? And so that was kind of what that started making our wheels turn, where we're like, oh my gosh, like we could actually like make a full, like a living, like doing this. And so that's when we were like, okay, maybe we should try and do this like full time and just see what happens.
And where do you see yourself after, like you said, you won't be able to be doing this forever? Do you think about the future like that, or it's not something you've thought of?
We actually think about it a lot because I think you should always be prepared for anything. And I think COVID was a good example of what can happen. You know, we had a whole year of bookings that just got canceled out of nowhere because normally we're doing NBA halftime shows and all kinds of stuff, and all of it was canceled. Luckily, we were fine because we have savings, just because I never know if, say, one of us gets hurt in practice, and, you know, if we get hurt at the show or in rehearsal for shows, workers' comp covers us. But if we get hurt, you know, just on our own time, we're not covered. So I'm always obsessed about having emergency savings. So, you know, we've seen what can happen with live shows. All the shows are canceled. My brother works on Broadway, and, you know, they're all out of work too. So even if things do go back to normal, we still want to focus on like more as far as kind of changing how our business works, because right now we just have been doing live entertainment, and now we're starting to do a lot of virtual shows and public speaking gigs. And Tyce, he coaches a lot of people at Cirque with their personal fitness. So he's a personal trainer, and now he has more time to coach pretty much like whoever, whereas before he can only take a couple people at a time. So we've noticed that that's actually a huge industry, the fitness industry.
Mm-hmm.
So we're focusing on that, working on ebooks. And I mean, I feel like there's never going to be a point to where I stop thinking about what can I do next? You know, what's the next thing I can do to make money? Because I think you should always be growing and learning and trying to find new ways to make a living.
Yeah, and just improving your life in general.
Yeah.
What has been your greatest challenge doing this?
Greatest challenge, probably it was hard in the beginning because before we were as well known, we were getting jobs, but a lot of times we couldn't bring our son with us. So that was hard. So
and now you could, no problem.
I think now, because we have more of a name and more people know who we are, we have more bargaining power. So, you know, they could say, we want you. And we're like, okay, but you have to let our son come. And almost all the time they say yes. Whereas then before, like right after I had Jax, there was a company, I think it was in the Bahamas. They wanted to hire us to do trapeze. And then I think on Facebook, they saw that I had a kid. So they're like, oh, I know we offered you this contract, but never mind. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, I saw you just had a baby. And I'm like, okay, like, do you think I'm going to show up and not be in shape, or what's the deal? Like, what's going on here? And they just wouldn't tell me. They just like ghosted me. And then we ended up getting hired for Cirque du Soleil right after that, because the artistic director used to be an artist and now she's a mom, and she's like, oh, you're fine. Like, bring the kid. It's fine. Yeah. And then the Bahamas company, they see us online, like working for Cirque, and they're like, oh, actually, never mind. We want you. And I'm like, nope.
You lost your chance.
But like, we did have some people in when we first had our son who were like, you're making a mistake. It's not going to work with a family. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, why? Like, people just assume that, but it's not true. You can absolutely make it work.
Like, we live with this mindset that you have a kid, you have a family, can't do anything anymore. What did you do while you were pregnant with him? Like, and like right after you had the baby?
We worked at SeaWorld until I was about 4 months pregnant. And then at that point, I was like, okay, I need to take a break. Like, I was starting to feel it. The doctor said I could work until I was 6 months pregnant, but at 4 months, I was like,
I don't think the doctor fully understood what we do. And so,
like, I can't imagine a doctor letting you do it till 6 months.
So she got to like 4.5 months. And luckily, like, that was right when our contract was ending, because it's just a summer show that we were doing. And so it was literally like she got to that 4.5 month mark, and that was the last week of our shows. And it was perfect timing, because she's like, honestly, if we had to go one more week, I would have to stop. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So so we did 4.5 months of her being pregnant while we were performing. And then once we stopped,
Juventus. Right?
yeah, we went to there's a circus school that's in Minnesota. It's called Circus Juventus. And so we're friends with the owners there. And so for a couple of months, we just flew up there and stayed in Minnesota and taught at this circus school. So we just taught like teenage kids all these like different circus disciplines and things like that. So that was a lot of fun.
So
So we
cool.
did
Another
that.
example of how you always find ways to make money.
Yeah.
Right. And then for the last like 2 or 3 months, we just spent at home. It was like 2 months in West Virginia.
Yeah. About 2
Last
months,
like 2 months, we just stayed in West Virginia with her family, because Mary and her mom and all the women in her family are insane and they do home births. And so we went back there and Mary had gave birth to Jax in their little cabin, just like right there in the front room. So that was
Seems still a little bit traumatized by that.
yeah, it was quite the experience. I'll tell you that. That's for sure.
What's the reason that they do home births? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know. I think my mom, she was a little bit of kind of, I don't know what you would call it, like a hippie-ish. I don't know, growing up. So she had all of us, me and my siblings at home, and she's a midwife's assistant now. So she does all the births at like the Amish communities back home. But my younger brother, when he had his baby, his girlfriend was like, nope, I'm doing it in the hospital. And that was the first baby in our family that was born in the hospital. And my mom said that she was like, it was so peaceful. I'm like, oh yeah, you think? Some painkillers. So now my mom's like, you know what? You should just have your next one in the hospital. I'm like, oh, thanks, Mom. Thanks for telling me that now.
Did you like it doing it at home before?
The only reason I liked it is because I didn't like the idea of, I don't know, I've just heard these horror stories about girls being in the hospital and then the doctors being like, you need a C-section, and you're like, but I don't want one. But they do it because, you know, like the doctor is going to do whatever they need to do instead of like taking any risk. And obviously, if there was a risk, I would want to do the right thing. It's just, I didn't want to get stuck in a situation where, you know, maybe it was taking more time than what they like.
Where doctors feel.
Yeah. So they're just like, oh, just do this. So that's what I did like about the home birth. But I think if we have another kid, I'll probably do it in the hospital, but with a midwife. Because, you know, I think in Utah they do that. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, they do that here for sure.
You know, just in case something
like balance out.
Yeah.
Doctor not just pushing his own agenda on you.
Yeah.
And like with her mom being the midwife's assistant, like she's helped with like hundreds of births, and they do a lot of these births in the Amish community, and they all go so well. It's just like smooth. And so Mary's was a lot tougher, but the nice thing was she was back performing in 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, cause you know, there was no C-section, it was all just natural. And so she recovered so quickly. And we were right back to work, you know, after just a little bit after a month. It was kind
you
of
feel any difference in your body after that?
Honestly, not too much. I was hoping I would become more flexible because a lot of people were like, oh, after you have a baby, you're more flexible. And with me, I'm like, nope, I'm still just stiff, stiff as can be. I don't know, like, honestly, not that much changed.
Her abs got way better though.
Her abs got what?
Yeah, her abs got better. So Mary's always had like a 6-pack. And then when she had the baby, it kind of separated her ab wall just a little bit. And so it made her 6-pack even like more grooved out, like a deeper groove. So she actually like ended up having better abs after her baby.
Even though most people, I would think the opposite.
Yeah, I think most people probably do experience the opposite, but for Mary, it was just right.
Okay, at least something good came out of there. Besides for your awesome son. Now, you want to tell us your America's Got Talent story. I love it.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize, people know the story when we like got on AGT and succeeded, but they don't know the story, what happened previous. So actually in 2013 was our first time that we tried out for America's Got Talent.
Right.
And we prepared our routine. We flew to Chicago, and we were really excited to do it because we thought the routine was going to go really well. And like we had it kind of like down good and stuff. And so we went and performed on stage, the 4 judges standing there. And then, you know, the routine went well. And then after we were done, we were kind of waiting to hear what the judges were going to say. And they gave us straight no's across the board. And so they just told us basically that we weren't exciting, we weren't very good, and that, like, you know, maybe you should just probably move on to something else in life. And
Do
so
you know now why they said that?
I know because
yeah, we know now.
and not to like talk bad about any of the producers because they're awesome, but at the time they told us, "Oh, we like your trapeze, but don't do trapeze, do rope." And we're like, okay, like we kind of do rope. And then they're like, oh, and use this song. And we didn't know any better at the time. So we were like, okay, so we just did what they told us to do. We didn't do what like we are good at. But because we wanted to be on the show, we're like, we'll do whatever you tell us to do. So that's why, you know, we didn't stick to like our gut feelings of like what we think we're actually good at. We did exactly what they wanted to us to do artistically, which was, you know, do the rope and use this song and do this choreography. And it wasn't what we were good at. So I think that's why.
But yeah, so we do 2013, and it was a disaster. You know, it wasn't good. Went back to the hotel, and we seriously contemplated like what we were doing in life, and we were like, hey, you know, do we just move on? Do we like give up? Like, you know, obviously it's not that exciting, and so you know, what do we do? And so so that was 2013. We kept training, did a couple contracts, and then Mary found out she was pregnant in 2016. And it was when we had Jax that really kind of gave us that new perspective, gave us that new drive to succeed, because we knew we have a little one. And so we thought about ways that we could really, you know, be the best that we could be. And we just kept realizing that going back to America's Got Talent was going to be the best way to get recognized. We just realized, you know what, we need to improve our skills, and we need to go back there, and we need to prove the judges wrong. And so we just trained as hard as we could, kind of really like honed in on the trapeze and really just got as good as possible. And so then we went back in 2018, and it was really emotional for us because the first round, we had to leave Jax for about a month and a half with family because we had to go do a couple of contracts and we couldn't take him with us. So he was barely 2, and we hadn't seen Jax for, you know, a month and a half. And then we went to go audition for AGT again. And so we were super emotional, but like we were really determined and committed to do it. And so we did the audition, and Simon was the first one to speak. And the first thing he said was, he says, I think this is the first act of its kind that will go to the finals of America's Got Talent. So it was really cool because the first experience, they just shut us down.
Yeah.
And then we went back, and they're like, you have something special. And I think that this will be the first time that we see an act like this in the finals.
Oh, wow.
And so it was really cool. That pumped us up like just a ton. Like it was so cool. And so then we went back the second round, and we were just prepared to really step up our game and make it better and better. And then we had a really bad fall in that second round, and it freaking skyrocketed all the AGT ratings, and people, like, we were on every news station because it looked horrible, right? Like Mary slipped from my grip, and our trapeze was on fire, and I was wearing a blindfold. And so Mary falls headfirst to the stage. What people don't know behind the scenes that we had a mat. And so she was okay, but it looked like she fell to a fiery death. And so it was really bad. The silver lining was that the judges saw in us more than any of the other contestants. They saw how hard we were pushing the limits to get to the top. Like they saw it was only round 2, and they're like, oh my gosh, you are like doing everything you can to like get through. And so each one of the judges, I mean, obviously they knew that we fell, and they were like, yeah, you fell, but they were like, we can see that you guys are pushing the envelope more than anybody. And so they put us through to the next round because they're like, there is a passion, there is a drive that you guys have that we haven't seen. And so they put us through to the next round. And of course we had to do the same trick again, because we're not just going to go to the next round and like leave that alone. So we did the same thing. I did the blindfold. She did the same fall, and I caught her this time. And so, it was like this big like comeback story. Like we were like the underdogs, So that was amazing. We moved on to the semifinals. We introduced another act that we do, the roller skating act that we have. So we did a mixture of the trapeze and the roller skating, and that blew the judges away. They're really excited about that. And then that put us to the finals. And so did our finals routine. Simon's prophecy from the first round came true. We actually made it to the finals. And then finals routine went really good, but then we were eliminated in the top 10. So we made it to top 10 in the finals, but then we were eliminated. The following year in 2020, so 2018 we did the AGT series, and then 2020 we went back and did AGT Champions. And that's where they bring back all the finalists and all the people that won AGT in the past. And then we all compete against each other. And then once again, came back with something brand new. The first round, they loved it, moved on. Second round, did well, made it to the finals again. We're top 10, and we were expecting to be same situation. We thought that we were going to make top 10 and then just be eliminated somewhere around like the 10, 9, 8, somewhere around there. And so the 10th spot was called, the 9th spot was called, 8, 7, 6, 5. And we're called to top 5. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, we're top 5. This is so cool. And then top 4 is called out, and we're still in it. And we're like, we're going to get 4th place. This is amazing. Like, 4th place is so good. And then the top 3 were called out, and we were in the top 3. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to make 3rd place. This is amazing. And then top 2 was called out, and we're the top 2. And so we ended up getting a second runner up. So we were 2nd place, and it blew our minds. We were so amazed that we were able to go that far. And so, yeah, it was just a cool experience for us. And it's fun because it's still pretty fresh. Like, this just happened the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of our story.
It's crazy. And I think, first of all, it shows anyone and everyone they could do anything no matter what. You for sure have that in you now. That, I mean, obviously you had that in before if you were able to go and do it without having an example like you. But I know whatever challenge you're going to have, you're going to be able to go and figure it out because you have it in you. But what was the drive? What was that passion that helped you actually be able to go and do it?
I think with me, I've just never liked anyone telling me what I can and can't do. So I think once we started,
I love that so much. You hate school for them just telling you what to do, right?
Tell me what to do. And I don't like when people let the perception of how other people see them define them. So with me, somebody could look at us and be like, oh, they fell on AGT, they failed. And I'm like, well, what are you doing that's so great? Like, did you get a Vegas show? Until you have.
Yeah, don't put someone else down. They're 100 steps ahead of you. So
with me, I always just want to keep pursuing things. And that's my passion, is constantly getting better, constantly pursuing something new and exciting. So that's what drives me.
And, when we had Jax in 2016, like I was saying before, that really gave us, because we loved what we did, but we didn't have this huge drive and crazy passion for it at the time. But when we had Jax, we were like, you know what, now we have more of a reason to be the best at this. He's our reason. And so he was always in the back of our mind, and he came to every single AGT show that we did. He was at every one of them. And we knew he was in the audience. And so he was huge. He was a big piece of that. We wanted so badly that as he grows up, that he'll be able to look back at this and see our AGT experience and know that his parents really, really tried their best to reach the highest level of their occupation. And so we want him to look back and see that, so that as he's finding his path and his occupation in life, that he'll have that same desire and that same drive, because he's like, oh man, I want to be able to do what my parents did. And whether he does trapeze or it doesn't matter, we just want him to see that we had that drive, and we hope that he kind of has the same drive as well. And so that's that's the main thing. And then we just love it. It's just a passion of ours. When we get on the trapeze, it just there's this connection that we have. We're just connected, and it's our expression of art to the world. And what's been so cool is from the very first round of AGT, we would get hundreds of messages on our social media from couples saying that they were literally like on the edge of divorce, like they were about to sign divorce papers, and they saw our episodes on AGT, and it literally like sparked their passion for each other again. Like it sparked that love that they had. And they would write to us and they'd say, we were about to get divorced and now we're not because we saw your story on AGT. And we were like, how in the world? Like,
What do you think that is? Like, how?
yeah, we never would have thought that just like doing our trapeze act on AGT would have inspired people in that way. And so we just thought what we did was cool. We didn't realize that it was like people were like falling in love again. like it was really,
what do you think it's of your act that makes people, like you say, fall in love again?
Well, I think the biggest thing was like what's really important to us when we're designing our act is if you think about any performance you've ever seen, there's a series of emotions that the performer makes you feel. So so like if you think of a really great song, within the song, you feel so much like emotion. Like there's an emotional aspect to it, whether it's the way they raise their voice or lower their voice or the words they're saying, it makes you feel very emotional. And then when you're seeing a live singer, when you see their face, like you can see the passion and the desire in their face, and that creates another emotion. And then when you watch like dancers, you're seeing these dancers move in this very fluid way, and it's very seamless. And so what we would do is we would watch all kinds of performers, singers, dancers, ice skaters, all type of performances, and we realized that you need to make an audience that's watching you, you need to make them feel almost all the emotions. There needs to be a sense of joy when you're performing. There needs to be fear. They need to feel fear. They need to feel emotion. They need to feel sadness, happiness. Like the more emotions you can make someone feel while they're watching you, the more they're going to be invested in you. And so the best performers in the world are the ones that are able to pull out all these emotions from the audience. And the more emotions you can pull out, the more they'll be invested in you. So when we program our act, we make sure that there is all of these emotions that are felt. So we use the right music, we use the right fluid motions. We just the way we design it is in the intent is to make people feel all these different emotions. And then we kind of tie it up with like a little bit of a storyline while we're performing. And so I think that is what people saw. They didn't just see like an intense trapeze act. They saw an intense a trapeze act that was full of like excitement and passion and love and sensual. It was very sensual. It was very fluid, like a dance. There was so many scary moments and happy moments, and so you just bring all those together, and then that creates this perfect storm for people just to be invested in what you do.
Yeah, yeah. So what has that done to your own relationship, both the acting and the fact that you've been able to help so many couples?
I think it's definitely made us stronger together.
Yeah.
I mean, just knowing that people can look at us and we bring some kind of, I don't know, inspiration to their relationship. It makes me feel very proud of what we've done. And also, I mean, obviously we love each other, but I'm like, oh, we're actually like helping other people's relationship. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me feel like we're doing something kind of important and not just like, look at me.
Not what do people say, oh, you're just acting silly, but like, yeah, you're doing real stuff here.
Yeah, we're not just entertaining people. We're creating like art that moves people.
Yeah.
And the other thing too that it's really helped us with is like we still have similar issues in relationships that most people do. Like, you know, there'll be things that come up that cause problems. But because of what we've done and this act and the things that we've accomplished, when we do have these issues that normal people have, we're able to get through them easier because it's like, look what we've done. Like, why would we split up?
Yeah.
You know, like even if there
it
was
like not even anywhere on the radar because
it's like even if there was like big problems, we would sit down and be like, okay, like look at us. Like there's no real reason why we would have big issues, you know? Like we work well together. We do this inspirational thing for people. And you know, we're happy, we love what we do, we have this family. So that just the performance of what we do, it kind of solidifies our personal relationship as well, and it keeps us together. And so that's kind of a big piece of it too.
Wow. It's a real inspiration. Now, for our final question.
Yep.
Question I asked everyone. How would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using 3 words: love, connection, and intimacy?
So without using those words.
Without using those
Whoa,
words.
that's intense. Okay, repeat it one more time.
Love, connection, and intimacy.
And then how would
you describe an extraordinary relationship
Without those words?
Without those words.
Trust. I feel like trust, right?
Does trust follow?
Trust it's a really big one. You can't have anything without trust. You guys know that.
I think, trust would be one. And then I think another one would be learning, like being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I like that so much.
That would probably, that just describes our relationship. Like we've just gotten comfortable with being uncomfortable because every single thing we do is uncomfortable. When we go on these TV shows, it's really uncomfortable. When we get on the trapeze bar and I throw her around, it's very uncomfortable. When we do the skating act and she's spinning around, it's very uncomfortable. Like nothing that we do is comfortable.
Yeah.
And so, but that is how you grow. Like if you stay in comfort, you don't grow.
Well, and I feel like that applies to relationships that are like normal and they're not doing trapeze and all that, because
it applies to everything, anywhere you want to grow, whether in your relationship, whether it's in your work or whatever it is. And I love that. I love that so much.
In this situation, when you know, live together as a couple where things aren't great and you're going to be really uncomfortable, whether you have to talk about something you don't want to talk about or there's like conflict that you have to deal with. You have to deal with it. I mean, if you just don't deal with it, it's just going to keep getting more and more.
It's more comfortable and much easier not to deal with it, not have those conversations, and just end up in a divorce.
Yeah, and it's and that just what Mary was saying about the trust thing is like that we developed that early on because we have to trust each other so much. Like Mary's life is literally in my hands, and so like the trust thing was huge. And so you know, one of the keys to having a good relationship would be to be completely open with each other, like no like hidden secrets, like everything is open, and having just full trust and communication with each other, because that's how our act works. Because a lot of the times when we do our act, I wear a blindfold, and so there has to be perfect communication and trust, or it's not going to work. I think those two things, just like trusting each other, completely open trust, and then just being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mary and Trace. This was amazing.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was great.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.